In the distant past, innumerable amounts of souls came together to form an infant, which is worshipped by many. They eventually become sacrifices that feed their life to the baby, who rapidly matures into the current Yhwach. In the present, Ichigo follows Ichibei to his temple as he explains the current situation to him. Soul Society has suffered extensive damage, and Ichibei criticizes the Shinigami for becoming so weak after 1,000 years of peace. Ichigo blames the royal guards for merely watching as this happened, but Ichibei asserts that this is part of their duty, as is their duty to train him in preparation for the coming clash with the Quincy. Ichigo thanks him for his help and begins to leave, wishing to return to Soul Society to prepare for the next invasion, but Ichibei calmly declares that he has no chance of winning against Yhwach as he is now. In the Cathedral of Silburn, the stern Ritter and Soldat gather before the stage as Yhwach makes his appearance. Hashwolf commands those present to salute their sovereign, and Yhwach begins recounting the Quincy's history. They've lost many comrades, and their existence was threatened, but they survived by hiding in the Shatten Breach while enduring humiliation for the next 1,000 years. The final battle is upon them, and the time to annihilate the Shinigami and reinstate their honor is approaching. He calls Ishida Uryu onto the stage, revealing him to be the last Quincy survivor and his appointed successor. All of the stern Ritter are shocked by this, with Baz wondering what's going on. Yhwach asserts he will not stand for objections, promising that they will see Uryu's powers firsthand in the battlefield, and he dismisses the meeting. An exasperated Bambietta expresses her bafflement and walks over to a soldat, ordering him to follow her to her room, where she proceeds to casually bisect him. The girls intrude, and Candace chastises her for making such a mess again. She insists that Bambietta needs to do something about her urge to kill attractive men every time she gets annoyed, prompting her to ask what they want from her. Liltato states Baz is causing a commotion, and they suggest heading over. He punches the wall in frustration, shouting that he doesn't understand what's going on, inviting the others to explain what's happening. But it's everyone's first time hearing about a successor, and they are just as surprised as him. Baz refuses to accept the situation and attempts to walk out, but Hashwolf enters the hall, wondering where he's going. Baz questions why Hashwolf is not doing anything, as he assumed he would be Yhwach's successor. No one would have objected to it if this were the case, but Hashwolf responds by stating that Yhwach's will is everything, so there is no room for objections. Calling him a fool, Baz demands that Hashwolf gives up his position to him as well. He tells him to calm down, but Baz leaps at him. Before anything can happen, a gift ball forms between them, and Askin sarcastically praises how calm Baz is. When questioned, he states he was saving them as fighting is no good and there is nothing to be gained from it. Meanwhile, in the throne room, Yhwach drips his blood into a cup before handing it to a kneeling Uryu. Before performing the ritual, Uryu inquires about why he has been appointed as his successor. Yhwach states that the answer should be obvious if he thinks about it. He asks why Uryu is still alive at this moment in time, and Uryu recalls standing in a field of crosses before the grave of his mother. He is the only Quincy in history to ever survive the Oswalin, and Yhwach states that there is a reason he lives. Uryu admits that ever since then, he has wondered why he survived and questioned his purpose, finally having found the answer in his grandfather's diary. Yhwach's words reaffirmed his thoughts that Shinigami and Quincy can never coexist and brought clarity to what must be done. Urging him to follow him, Uryu accepts and proceeds to drink the blood in the cup. Soon his powers will awaken, and Yhwach bestows upon him the same letter that he holds. In Hueco Mundo, Orihara conducts further research on the medallion while listening to Orihime report her safe arrival to the Nigel ruins. Chad encourages for them to begin their training as they don't have much time left, and Orihime agrees before wondering how Ichigo is doing. Ichigo walks over to a table to place down his blades while Ichibei comes in behind him, reiterating that he cannot defeat Yhwach in his current state. Rather, he must surpass the strength of a Shinigami. He will only ever be a Shinigami if he merely hones his Zanpakuto skills. Ichigo finds himself holding a wooden sword, and Ichibei decides to begin his training, causing everything to peel away around them. He is now standing alone in a long and dark stone path. This is a sacred place that cannot be entered without the permission of the Soul King, and is the testing site to see if Ichigo is worthy of strength. Down in Soul Society, Shunsui worries for Ichigo, admitting to his lieutenant that Ichibei is cunning, and may not be acting in the best interest of Soul Society. Regardless, they will do what they can to protect this world. At the same time, Captain Shinji argues with Hiyori that he's begging for her help, but she can feel his insincerity even from Earth. He hangs up after telling her only she can do the task, and Hachi comes over with a package from Shinji and Mayuri, ultimately leaving her no choice but to fix the distortions in the human world with the others. Back in Ichibei's temple, Rukia and Renji stand across from each other in a fighting stance until the bells finally ring. Renji complains about how hard this is, but Rukia is no nonsense, berating him for thinking it's difficult to stand still. She then receives a call and gets excited, informing Renji that his captain, Byakuya, has recovered. At the springs, Kurenji notes that he has spent more time under his care than anyone else, and wonders if the heat has gone to his head. But Byakuya muses that his lack of power prevents anything from getting to his head, and he resolves to be stronger. A relieved Renji questions when Rukia and Kurenji exchanged numbers. Ichibei enters and comments on how chatty they have gotten compared to before, when they were initially too weak to even stand under the pressure of the area. He invites them to start training with him, which they gladly accept. Elsewhere, Keigo asks Tatsuki whether she knows Ichigo's whereabouts, but she also doesn't have a clue. With Chad, Orihime, and Uryu also missing, Mizuhiro concludes it must have something to do with Soul Society. They are interrupted when Shunsui approaches them, and Mizuhiro quickly identifies him as the captain of the 8th Division, flattering Shunsui that they remember him. He notes that with the captain meeting with them, something serious must have happened, and Shunsui reveals he has come to discuss them saying goodbye to Ichigo. Keigo demands to know what he means, and accuses them of always getting Ichigo mixed up in their troubles, which Shunsui confirms Ichigo is helping to protect Soul Society. He is currently in a special location, but is confident Ichigo will come back safely, but he worries about what kind of power he would return with. He clarifies that Ichigo's immense power could adversely affect the human world, in which case he would not be allowed to return. A furious Keigo criticizes them for locking him away when Ichigo went to help them, but there's nothing they can do if this happens. Before Keigo can punch Shunsui, Mizuhiro points out that this is a hypothetical situation, and Shunsui admits it's an unlikely 1 in 10,000 chance, and is but one of many possible outcomes. It wouldn't be fair to Ichigo to keep his friends uninformed, and Shunsui proceeds to hold up a pass for each of them. He calls them soul tickets, and explains that it would let them freely enter Soul Society to see Ichigo should the worst occur. Shunsui reassures them that this would not be happening anytime soon and tells them not to worry. In Hueco Mundo, Orihime and Chad are resting after their training session, and she notes how peaceful it is despite the imminent battle, explaining it feels nice for humans like them to unite with the Arrancars and help the Shinigami. She wishes this peaceful coexistence and respect for each other could continue. In Soul Society, Schattenbreach suddenly engulfs the area, replacing the entire city with the Wandenreka city. As the 12th Division struggles to understand the situation, Akon realizes that Soul Society is gone. Watching from above, Yhwach asks Uryu if he knows the Emperor's song. The king will regain his heartbeat in 900 years, his mind in 90 years, and his strength after 9 years. Yhwach reveals an additional verse, stating that the awakened king will regain the world in 9 days. He invites Uryu and Hashwolf to join him in his conquest in these last few days.